Entitled Mother Doesn't Want Her Kid to Know Death or Injury Exist. Back in spring of 2018, my cousin and his wife and family were in a serious car accident that was all over their local news. It involved a meth addict speeding through a red light, hitting my cousin's car as well as the one next to his, killing my cousin's 5-month-old daughter, and seriously injuring everyone else. My mom went up to their city to help them deal with the tragedy and manage things, while my dad took me, my brother, and my 2 younger nephews, 7 and 11 at the time, who live with us out to eat at IHOP. While there, Dad received an update on the situation, in form of a news article. He began reading it to us, not too loud though. It described the injuries of each person involved, not in too much detail however. As he was reading it, a lady in a booth next to us turns around and says to my dad, "Can you stop talking about such violent things? My 5-year-old doesn't need to hear it. He'll be traumatized." I might mention her booth was in their own conversation at the time, and we didn't think anyone was quiet enough to even be listening. My dad is a super quiet guy, and doesn't handle conflict very well in the time of occurrence. So he just stumbled, "I'm sorry, but my family is going through a terrible tragedy right now, I'm just updating them on what's going on. They need to know." The mother kept up, "I'm sorry for your loss, but I have a 5-year-old right behind you and I don't want him to hear it." My dad gestured to my youngest nephew, "And we have a 7-year-old, he just wants to know how his cousins are doing." She still wouldn't give up however, and angrily said something along the lines of, "Well, your kids will have problems when they grow up, and I don't want mine to end up like that." My dad gave up at that point and just shook his head, but I could tell he was furious. He later said he wished he gave her a piece of his mind. Hope that kid has fun growing up in a fantasy world until he wakes up to the harsh realization that it ain't all sunshine and rainbows. Funny thing is, if you overprotect your kids, later on, when they encounter bad situations, they don't know how to handle it. Surprise lady, you're giving your kid a sick and sad future. Truth. Overprotecting only leads to underprepared children. She's not protecting her child, she's setting him up for failure to cope with anything bad as an adult. Way to fail as a parent, lady. I know someone who was being overprotected, but they allowed it because the dad always threatened with, "If you don't listen we kick you out of the house," and she was too spoiled to want to get kicked out, or something. Eventually, kid grew up, moved out and made some friends. One of those friends got in a car crash and barely survived. The person I first mentioned couldn't process that at first. Saying things like, "But it's just a scrap, you can't die. And you can only die of old age." When we explained, showed videos/shows, they kinda shut up and just broke down. They were so sad and basically fell into a depressed state because of the realization that their friend is in danger. That friend is fine now, but the person never really recovered because of their ignorant upbringing. I can kind of get this woman because she doesn't want her son to know what death is at the age of 5, but I don't get why she didn't just move to another booth or just ignore them. I also don't get why she was being too rude about it. I guess people that are so entitled just don't get how important it is to tell the family that someone has currently passed away or was injured. I get the whole not wanting to expose a 5-year-old to death as well. However, harassing another customer who was very likely not heard at all by the kid, and even if he did hear, it wouldn't even make sense or matter to him, just a rude lady. I don't get the mother at all. A child should be taught the concept of death at the youngest age possible, just put lightly, such as death is when someone sleeps forever, but the sleep is caused by pain or age and the person cannot be woken up after a few minutes of their sleep. Or just give them the grown-up version. Death is when living things, plants, animals, and us, leave this world behind. It is a sad occasion for those who have to learn to live without them, but we treasure their memory and take comfort in the fact that our senses don't allow us to perceive what lies beyond. Don't have to go gory with it. Just give it to them straight and see how they deal with it, then respond to that as required. We did similar with my kid, which included taking her to the wakes of elderly non-relatives who were friends of mine when she was a preschooler. We'd answer questions and keep it respectful when it came time to view the body. By the time a friend of hers mother suddenly died of cancer, She was able to stand composedly next to her friend in the reception line and then the service, holding her hand so her friend wouldn't feel sad by herself. When her great-grandfather died, it was, well, he was very sick and sad and we'll miss him, but it would be mean to want him to still be alive for our sake because he was miserable. Granted, it might be different when somebody closer dies, but I want her to be able to handle such important times in life with dignity and compassion.